Welcome to the Famous Graves podcast, number 15. I'm your host, Mike Knox. Just wanted to jump in with my rant about the post office. I don't know how long the post office has been around, a couple hundred years before the Pony Express, and they still haven't gotten it together. And I remember a couple years ago they were talking about that they were losing all their money and we need to rally behind them, and they are just a horrible, horrible, horrible government agency that can never seem to get anything right. And if I have to be the first one to say it, I'm going to say it. You've got FedEx and you've got UPS. There's a reason why those other companies are out there, because they're doing a better job than the United States Postal Service. I can't even find a mailbox anymore. When I was a kid, there was a mailbox on every corner. Post office anymore, and then when I go there, it's locked. And I've got to get out of my car and then go into the actual post office. And, this last time around I went in there and that one was also locked. So there's no place for me to mail anything. And you can't put your mail in your mailbox because it's getting stolen by a bunch of scumbags nowadays. But my big gripe this time was that I went to go mail my book, because I do realize nobody reads, so I have to give my book away. That is, I have two books: Vivian's Reign, which is about my daughter's epilepsy, and the other one is about my time in prison. And so I'm mailing the book, trying to get the word out about epilepsy. A lot of it has to do with there are no laws to protect anybody from discrimination about epilepsy. So in the state of California, absolutely no laws. Teachers do not need to learn anything about epilepsy. Therefore, there is no policy in place at schools. If a child is to have a seizure, if a child has epilepsy, the school is not required to keep their medication on campus. School is not required to work with their parents about the epilepsy. They're required to have a plan. You have to go and get a individual care plan, an IEP, and even that doesn't guarantee that they're not going to discriminate against you. So, again, going back to the post office there, I'm trying to mail my book, I'm trying to get the word out about epilepsy, and I go, and they charge me like $2.50 for a book, because it's like, the cheapest thing when you're mailing a book. And I'm thinking that it got mailed, but it didn't. So 2 weeks later, then I get a little note from the mailman that says I owe another $2.17. Normally, I would not care about $2.17, but this is mainly 100% about the principal. So now I've got to go back to the post office, and I've got to stand in line for 20 minutes, but I can't just stand in line and be left alone. There's a guy in his little vest there, and he looks like a groundhog, and he thinks that he's helping people. He's not helping anybody. He's making us go backwards in time. He's the person that does not help anybody whatsoever. And so he comes up to me, and he's like, yeah, I saw your slip there, so you got to go around the corner to the door, because that's the person that gives you the packages. And I'm like, no, I'm just here to pay the extra fee for... I've been through this rodeo before there, buddy. He's like, no, that's not the way that it is. You got to go around to the side of the door. So I'm like, okay. And so I get out of line and I go around the corner to a door that is not, I don't know why, but they don't have any sort of, there's nothing on it. It's just a door. It doesn't say like, hey, this is where you pick up packages, or hey, United States Postal Office, or hey, we're going to screw you again, which is what they did. So nobody's there. So I'm waiting and I'm waiting. Nobody comes to that door. So I go and get back in line. And the guy comes up to me like he's never seen me before. And he's like, oh, yeah, the line for picking up your postal is around the corner. And at that time, I'm so annoyed because I've wasted so much time. And I just feel like this is so exhausting. I turned to him and I said, please, do not talk to me anymore. You're not helping me. And of course he looked at me like I was absolutely insane. Waited another 20 minutes, got up to the front of the line, and the lady's like, oh no, you pick up your postal parcels around the corner at the door. And I'm like, nobody is there. I've already been there. So she disappears, right? She comes back. There it is. And this is what I don't get about the post office, is that you've had my package for 2 weeks. Why is it so filthy? I mean, the thing was like covered with dirt, like you were playing soccer with it. And so she's like explaining to me, but making no sense whatsoever, because the reality is this is the way that the post office screws you. Is I already paid $2.17, but they void that out, and then they also cross out the address that I'm trying to send it to. So I've got to now get a brand new envelope. I can't use the same envelope, so thus you've screwed me out of $2.17. Now I have to pay another $2.17. I really don't care. I don't need to do the math to add it up, but think about that. You've just screwed me out of $2.17 because the computer, the machine flagged your package and said that you owed $2.17, which is a complete lie. So multiply that by the millions of other parcels and packages that go through that get flagged by this computer, and that's how they make up all their losses. It's the same thing that the government does, or all these other, the electric company, the gas company. It's like, oh, we have your utility fee, or we have some sort of usage fee or a tax fee, and that's exactly what the post office is doing, and thus that is why they drive me friggin' nuts. And I know what you're all thinking. You're thinking, why don't you just go to UPS or FedEx? And again, I don't like either one of those places. The convenience of me going to the post office is just a routine that I've always gone there. The UPS place is so tiny. It's like they're really, it's where I have my mailbox. And then the FedEx guy is always like, he's like high on life, like so happy. He's like singing a tune, and then you ask him a question and he totally like freaks out on you, like he's got some sort of badge. I don't know if I ever told this story before, but during COVID I tried to mail a bottle of scotch to my father, and I was trying to see, can you mail something online? And I Googled it and I couldn't find anything, and so I just asked the FedEx guy the question of, can I mail a bottle of liquor? And the guy flipped out and he was like, sir, like he's a Navy SEAL or something. He's like, sir, this is not a state law. This is a federal law. Do you hear me? And I'm like looking around, like, am I going to get arrested? And everybody's looking at me because the guy's screaming at me, federal law, not state law, but federal law. You cannot, I repeat, sir, you cannot put alcohol through the United States mail service. And I was like, okay there, guy, calm down. And that is the last time that I ever went to FedEx, because I was like, this place is absolutely insane. And it was just all around exhausting, which is my point with all I'm trying to do is mail something to somebody, okay? And I feel like in society we're going backwards on that. Somebody needs to step up to the plate. We've got all these millennials and Gen Z people inventing all of these things. I can't invent anything. I'm Gen X, so I'm out of ideas. So I need somebody to get the little thumbs going and to invent some sort of app that bypasses all of this stuff for the post office, so that we can just get on with our lives. And I'm hoping that's going to be done in 2023. The other thing, which it basically goes in line with the post office, is I've got a bunch of prison-like stuff, like I've got cool stuff from prison when I worked in a prison. So I've got like shanks and stuff. I've got dice that, I don't know, they made them out of human teeth or something. But it says, these dice are like they're made out of sugar. I'm just kidding. It's the same consistency as actual dice. You can feel them in your hand. You can roll them. I've got other ones that are made out of toilet paper. I've got, stingers and all sorts of wonderful prison things. I think I've got like 50 things of prison. And I contacted the museum for the sheriff's department, and they could care less. The guy was not a nice person. He did not care that I had any of this stuff. And again, it's because none of these departments communicate with each other. So sheriffs, LAPD, they're against each other. Parole, probation, none of them coordinate with each other. The feds, certainly, you never see FBI or CIA, Homeland Security, whatever it is. So they all have resentment for each other, and it transcends down to these museums. So the LAPD museum, I've been trying for the last 5 years to just get rid of this stuff because it's in my garage. It's great stuff, but what am I going to do with it? And so I'm emailing and calling the LAPD museum, which is in Highland Park, California, and they could care less either. So I'm just like, you know what, I'm going to go in there. And because of COVID, now they're only open 2 days a week. And if you've ever been to the LAPD museum, it's an awesome museum. I'll give them that. They have a mock jail cell. They've got, helicopter from the 80s. They've got the North Hollywood shootout, all the stuff from there, like all the stuff those guys were wearing, all of their weapons. They've got a whole, all the uniforms throughout the 100 years of the LAPD, which I'm sure they've been around for longer than that. And so I bring my stuff, in there, and of course the door's locked because I'm sure people are breaking in there or something to steal stuff or whatever. They don't have security, and it's an old precinct, which is cool. Also, and they have a whole 1920s cop car, 50s cop car. They got a tank back there. And the guy at the front is probably an explorer. He's really young, and I explained my situation, and he's like, oh, all you got to do is email them on the website. And I'm like, yeah, I've been doing that for the last 5 years. Nobody answers me. And he's like, really? And I'm like, come on, guy. I go, look, I will write down my information and give that to... I know you have a curator. Every museum's got a curator. I don't know what that means, but I know you have one. So I wrote down my information. I brought stuff in to show him, and he seemed interested. but he's not the curator. The curator, I guess, could care less. What does that guy care? The guy at the front desk who was doing all the work, he seemed to think it was a cool idea. Haven't heard anything back, though. Still got all of my stuff. And I think that's the same thing. There was this museum, and I don't think it's there anymore, but it was the Museum of Death in Hollywood. Same thing. They had like a crappy, I mean, it was pretty pathetic. They had like like an old baton and a really crappy shank and like the rule book of the prison. And that was about all they had. And I contacted them and I'm like, hey, I've got all this great stuff. Like logistically, I know where you could place all this stuff. It would look great. I will purchase you a glass, whatever container thing you can put it in. I don't care. I just want it to be displayed. I think it's good stuff. Nope, nothing, crickets, and that place is completely gone too. So that's my other thing about art. Art is art's real tricky. It's And I've really just come to the realization that a lot of this art is a way for you to pass money through the hands of other people tax-free. Don't tell the IRS that, though. But that's just my personal belief. Nobody else take me on that. I was thinking if you ran your own S-Corp, how do you bill yourself? I mean, I realize like especially content people, they're you've got TikTok and you've got all this great live stuff, and maybe you're doing that all day long. Are you billing yourself minimum wage? Are you billing yourself $50 an hour, like an attorney, like $400 an hour? Those are the things that I think about. If I were to do that, what would I be billing myself? And to be honest, I don't want to do anything for under $50 an hour. That's just me, though. So they have the end of cars by 2035. The state of California has decided that all cars should be banned that are gas-powered or not made by 2035. So we are looking at the next 13 years. And I don't care. I could care less because, number one, I know that the person in charge who created this law, somebody else is going to come along and undo it. Most likely it'll be the Hail Mary pass. And you're putting all these regulations on people. Most of the population cannot afford, especially now, to get a electric car. I think the Teslas look great. I don't have $80,000 to buy the Tesla. I don't even have $30 to buy the crappier Tesla. So I'm more in the $5,000 car range of a used car. Give me a used Honda or a used Toyota. But until you guys step it up with your solar powers on the roof of it, I don't think a lot of us are going to get those cars. So truthfully, I don't see any of that happening by 2035. Although the entire state of California, according to Al Gore, was supposed to be underwater by 2020. So we will see about that. Marked grave. I wanted to talk about two of the places that I put on TikTok. My TikTok is Famous Graves, if you have not checked that out. And one of the guys was George Warren Shufelt. He was born in 1886 and died in 1957. But in 1933, he claimed that there was an underground civilization in Los Angeles. And the exact point of where that was, and he had this X-ray machine that he brought to City Hall and, got some investors. Basically was trying to dig to get down there, and was telling everybody there was gold down there. But it's where Fort Moore is in Los Angeles. And Fort Moore, of course, was a hillside or mountain where it was a military fort. And now it's just a giant, it's very cool what they've done as a monument, but the hillside part is not there anymore. But it was basically the highest point in Los Angeles, so the military could have an advantage when they were kicking everybody else out of California. Now, of course, it's a very cool monument, but there's a lot of homeless people, and it's a little sketchy there if you start to film. So I would definitely look at your surroundings. But that exact spot there basically is where this guy was trying to find gold, and of course he could not. But what I find interesting is at that time in the 30s, there were still the con men that were trying to convince people, and gold was one of those things that they would use to try to convince people. You're just going to drill down. Of course, there's mines everywhere, and people are staking their claims to the mines. So this is a guy that approached people, said he had a X-ray machine, which was a common con, and he was gonna, x-ray down into the ground and find a bunch of gold and some alien people, which he never found. But a lot of articles ran in the LA Times in the 30s about the lizard people and how he was gonna find them, and it kind of was a good, it sold some papers and it ran some hysteria and people got scared. So he's kind of a folk hero, and he is buried at Valhalla Cemetery in North Hollywood, and I've been there, looked for him, but it's unmarked, and I could not find him. The other one I wanted to talk about was, if you remember, Max Headrum was basically, he was the first AI guy in the 80s, and so he had there was his own show, it was called Max Headrum, and he was basically like a face on the TV, and it was kind of like a character face, and so at that time, he was portrayed, the actor Matt Freer portrayed him, and it was a huge hit. I have like the watch. I also posted the watch that I've got, but it was like, this is the future and this is so cool, and Max Headroom is going to be in everybody's home, and it's basically, and I don't see why. He was kind of like the Surrey, but with a face, and I don't really see why you couldn't have that now, because that would be a lot cooler than Surrey. If you actually had, say, you've got the Surrey. I could never work for Apple or anything. I don't really have that imagination, but you could have like the Surrey box. Why doesn't it have a face on it? Why is Surrey a no face person? Why couldn't you have Surrey with an attractive lady or an attractive man for the lonely people out there? I think that would sell better. Again, Gen Z, Gen X, millennials, get that app going and write that down and redo it. But in the 80s, in 1987, somebody hijacked 2 stations in Chicago, and then it was pirated broadcast, which I don't think anybody would even care now, but that was the big thing in the 80s too, was pirate radio or pirate TV. And so somebody in a Max Headroom mask got on 2 stations and basically was acting like him, and still to this day they do not know who it was. And that's, what is it, the FCC something? I'm surprised that they didn't like an all-out assault through Homeland Security to find out who that person was. But going to the unmarked grave of the show is Henry Fonda. And now I read Henry Fonda's, of course this is Jane Fonda's father, and I read his autobiography, and what I got from the autobiography was, this is somebody that he wanted to be an actor, and he was pretty much, down to his last nickels, hadn't eaten in a couple days. He was the starving artist. And that's what I liked about his autobiography. Didn't sound like the greatest father. You could see why his kids turned out the way that they did. But again, he was born May 16th, 1905. And he was very well-known actor, but he started out in Broadway, made his way into Hollywood films in 1935, and rose to film stardom with performances in films of Jezebel, Jesse James, Young Mr. Lincoln, and got a nomination for an Academy Award for Best Actor for Grapes of Wrath. Probably not a lot of films that people recognize. You should know Grapes of Wrath because they still make you read that book, I think, in school. In 1941, he starred opposite Barbara Stanwyck in the screwball comedy The Lady Eve, ending his service in World War II. He was starring in roles in 2 westerns, The Oxbow Incident and My Darling Clementine. The later movie was directed by John Ford. He also starred in Ford's western Fort Apache. After a 7-year break from films, during which Fonda focused on stage production, he returned from World War II and did Mr. Roberts, which in 1955, which that was the name of my golden retriever. My dad was like, we're going to name him Mr. Roberts. And I'm like, who the hell is Mr. Roberts? And he's like, it's a great movie. And it is a pretty good movie, I've got to say. And 1956, at the age of 51, he played the title role as the 38-year-old Manny in Alfred Hitchcock's The Wrong Man. In 1957, he starred in Juror Number 8 in 12 Angry Men. 12 Angry Men is a good movie. That was a movie when we took my sister to college in Colorado. They herded us all into a theater and showed us that movie, and I just thought, why would they be showing us that movie on orientation day? Like, I just found it very odd that you spent all this money to go to a private college, and this is what they are having you watch. Good movie, though, but just a little strange that Colorado College would be having you. And I've always wondered, do they show that? Do they still show that to this day? Or is that just something that, just that day, like they screwed up or something? You know, like Mr. Jenkins didn't show up that day, so they had to show a movie until somebody replaced him. He was born in Grand Island, Nebraska, and he was the son of a printer, and his family then moved to Omaha, Nebraska in 1906. Can you imagine 1906, Omaha, Nebraska? It's got to be cold there, and I don't think there's any heat except from the fireplace. The Fondas their ancestors originated from Italy and migrated to the Netherlands in the 15th century. That's pretty cool that you can trace everything back there. In 1642, a branch of the Fonda family immigrated to the Dutch colony of New Netherland on the east coast of North America. They were among the first Dutch population to settle in what is now upstate New York, establishing the town of Fonda, New York. That is pretty cool. You've founded New York, because let's not forget, what was Manhattan bought for $8 and some beads, and now look at it thriving. I never had a city named after me. That is a long line of history for the Fonda family. Fonda was brought up a Christian Scientist, though he was baptized Episcopalian. They were close family and highly supportive, especially in health matters, as they avoided doctors due to their religion. Now, there was a Christian Science school that we played. I went to a Catholic school, and then we played the Christian Science. And I don't know if this still goes on, but I know that the Christian Science did not want any help from doctors because the higher spirit of God was going to care for them and fix them. So there were like teachers that had like broken arms and broken legs that they had never set, so you could visibly see that they never went to a doctor. And I always thought, that's not a religion for me. I don't think. Despite having a religious background, he later became an agnostic. He was bashful, short kid who tended to avoid girls. Didn't we all? Except his sisters. And he was a good skater, swimmer, and runner. He worked part-time in his father's print shop, and thought about a career in journalism. Later, he worked after school for a phone company. He also enjoyed drawing. Fonda was active in the Boy Scouts of America. He reached the rank of Eagle Scout. However, this is denied elsewhere, and I don't think we have any records, but I'm going to say he was one. 6 feet tall, but remained shy. He went to the University of Minnesota, where he majored in journalism, but did not graduate. While at Minnesota, he was a member of a fraternity and took a job with a retail credit company. At the age of 20, Fonda started his acting career at the Omaha Community Playhouse when his mother's friend, Marlon Brando's mother, recommended that he try out for a part in You and I, which he was cast as Ricky. He was fascinated by stage and learning everything from set construction to stage production, and he thought he was embarrassed by his acting ability. When he received the lead in another play, he realized the beauty of acting as a profession, and it allowed him to deflect attention from his own personality and create a stage character, which is why you get into acting in the first place. He arrived in Cape Cod and played a minor role at the Cape Cod Playhouse in Massachusetts. So this is something that probably doesn't go on a lot, but there used to be a lot more theaters, especially in Pasadena. There was one, and that was actually an acting college. Now it's just the Pasadena Playhouse. But a lot of actors at this time went to these playhouses, and a lot of them considered never leaving them and being in plays their entire life and never going to TV or film, because you could make money off of it. You could make a living out of that way, actually. Same with summer stock. It was during a play that he met his future wife, Margaret Sullivan. James Stewart joined the Players Club a few months after Fonda left, though they were soon to become lifelong friends. Fonda left the Players at the end of 1931 to 1932 season after appearing in his professional role in The Jest. Fonda headed to New York to be with his wife, Margaret. The marriage was brief, but when Jimmy Stewart came to New York, his luck changed. Getting contract information from Jimmy on Broadway. Fonda appeared in theatrical productions from 1926 until 1934. In 1935, as Janet Gaynor's leading man in 20th Century Fox's adaptation of The Farmer Takes His Wife. He reprised this role from Broadway of the same name, which had gained him recognition. Suddenly, Fonda was no longer broke. He had making $3,000 a week and dining with Hollywood stars such as Carole Lombard. Jimmy Stewart soon followed him to Hollywood, and they roomed again together next door to Greta Garbo. That's pretty cool. Fonda enlisted in the United States Navy to fight during World War II, saying, "I don't want to be in a fake war in a studio." Stewart had helped him raise funds for the defense of Britain, and Fonda served for 3 years as a quartermaster third class on the destroyer U.S. Saddle Lee. He was later commissioned as a lieutenant junior grade in Air Combat Intelligence in Central Pacific and was awarded the Bronze Star and the Navy's Presidential Unit Citation. After being discharged from active duty, served serving 3 years, 1945 to 1948. Golden Pond, which had 10 Academy Award nominations, and the film earned nearly $120 million at the box office. He, of course, played alongside Katharine Hepburn as his wife, and his daughter was Jane Fonda, and Daphne Coleman was, of course, his maybe soon-to-be brother-in-law in that one. Fonda was by that point too ill to attend the ceremony of the Academy Awards, and his daughter Jane accepted it on his behalf. She said when accepting the award that her dad would probably say, "Well, ain't I lucky?" Years later, Fonda's performance would be remembered as brutally honest portrayal of someone frightened old age. And I would say yes about that, because basically in that film, if you haven't seen it, he kind of loses track of where he is and starts to panic. And I fear for that day, let me just tell you. Fonda was married 5 times and had 3 children. His marriage to Margaret Sullivan in 1931 ended in separation and was finalized in 1933. In 1936, he married Frances Brokaw, a wealthy industrialist. They had a daughter who was born after the marriage in 1931. Fonda met his future wife, Frances, in England on the set of Wings of Morning. As a cold, self-absorbed person, a complete narcissist. And wouldn't you have to be if you're a Hollywood actor? But later in 1950, Fonda married Susan, his mistress. She was 21 years old, the daughter of interior designer and the stepdaughter of Oscar Hammerstein. Together, they adopted a daughter, Amy, born in 1953. They divorced 3 years later. Fonda's relationship with his children has been described as emotionally distant. Fonda loathed displays of feelings. I don't blame you there, guy. Whenever he felt that his emotional wall was being breached, he had outbursts of anger, exhilarating, and a furious temper that terrified his family. Yeah, I think we've all been there. Fonda died in his Los Angeles home from heart disease in 1982. 6 films, television programs, and shorts. I've just got to add that it's got to be tough when you're a celebrity like he was to be away from your family, although it sounds like he didn't want to be away from his family. But that's got to be tough for any actor when you're on set for months at a time. You're away from your family. You're missing all the family activities. It's just got to be hard. Like, subscribe, tell me who else you want me to see. You can check me out on MikeKnox.com, also Famous Graves on TikTok.